It takes little to have a lot. The snapdragon is both annual, biennial, perennial and rare. These are the plants that are all three at once. Explanation. Here we are dealing with snapdragons considered as biennials. They are at the end of their blooming period. These are snapdragons that were sown last year in rows of escarole chicories. Right next to it, some lavender plants now, which are visited by bumblebees, but before that the bumblebees were on the flower or flowers of the snapdragons. I would just like to go back to a biennial plant. In fact, it is a plant that is sown around June or July, spends the fall in a garden like here, and is found again the following year. So it spends the winter outside, it withstands the cold, and they bloom starting from May, June, July, or even later, as this is a particular characteristic of the snapdragon. So these snapdragons, we will consider them as biennials. We see the inflorescences with a few flowers remaining at the top. It is July, and on the flower stalk we can already observe seeds, very small black seeds of the snapdragon. If I leave these seeds in place, they will self-sow on the spot. And who knows, ants might catch the seeds and place them in the gaps between bricks, and we will find new snapdragons. So, as you understand, these snapdragons are considered biennial flowers. Well, I am going to transform these biennial flowers into perennials. That is, if I cut the flower stalks, which is not mandatory, and if the same snapdragon plant is able to survive in the same spot next year, then guess what? That same snapdragon becomes a perennial. So now, an annual plant, an annual snapdragon. An annual snapdragon means seeds that we will collect, store, and sow very early in the spring, starting from February or March, in a seed tray or a warm place. We will let them sprout, transplant them, and they will bloom the same year, that is starting from June or July. Here, we are dealing with an annual flower. Snapdragons are easily sown in place, but to successfully achieve spontaneous sowing in your garden, I recommend refining the soil surface with a rake, then carefully firming it to break up all the clods. If you have a preference for a color that you like, carefully cut its stem and gently tap the pods to let the small black seeds fall directly and slowly onto the prepared seed bed. Another method is to collect the small and tiny black seeds delicately in your hand and carefully scatter them gently on the surface. A tip for successfully sowing snapdragon seeds: sift a bit of local soil over the seeds, then press it down. Germination will occur with the next rain. Do you know why I'm actually called snapdragon? Well, quite simply, when you press on my two lips, it looks like a dragon's mouth. In summary, the snapdragon is indeed the incredibly well-known and resourceful plant that attracts bees, bumblebees, and children.